In the Bible we find when Yitzchak meets up with Rivka for the first time, his wife-to-be, he brings her into the tent of his mother Sarah. And says Rashi there, why did he bring her into the tent of his mother Sarah? To see if she had the same qualities as Sarah. What were the great qualities of Sarah? Says Rashi, number one, that when she lit the candles Friday afternoon, the candles burned the entire week. Number two, that there was a miracle in her dough. There was always enough food and dough and bread for the guests. And thirdly, that a cloud of glory hovered over her tent, implying that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, was there, alluding to the mitzvah of mikvah, the mitzvah of taras hamishpacha, family purity. And when Rivka came into the tent of Sarah, all of these three miracles once again reappeared. And that is when Rivka lit the candles Friday afternoon. It lasted the entire week. And number two is that when she made the challah for Shabbos, there was enough dough and challah for all the guests. And number three, when she came into the tent of Sarah, once again the cloud of glory reappeared. And therefore our rabbis tell us that even though a woman is obligated to keep all of the negative commandments in the Torah, and all of the positive commandments that are not restricted to a specific time zone, and in general says the Rambam that there's a difference of 14 mitzvos between a woman and a man, that a woman is obligated to keep 14 mitzvos less than a man. Yet there are three mitzvos in particular that a woman was chosen and endowed with. And these three mitzvos are the mitzvah of candle lighting, and number two, the mitzvah of kosher, and number three, the mitzvah of mikvah, family purity. And this is the Rashi here that Sarah, her candle burned the entire week, the Shabbos candles. And number two, the dough implies the mitzvah of kosher. And number three, the cloud of glory represents the mitzvah of mikvah. And so, over the next three classes, we're going to talk about these three mitzvahs. The first mitzvah, the mitzvah of candles. What does this mitzvah represent? Why was it given to the women? And what are the benefits of this mitzvah? We find that the Zohar and also the Gemara, the Medrash, give a reason for the lighting of Shabbos and Yom Tov candles. And the reason goes back before Sarah, but rather goes back to the Garden of Eden, and it goes back to Chava. And the reason there is because it says Chava, Eve, the first woman, by eating from the fruit of the forbidden tree, the Eitz Hadas, she extinguished the light of the world. She brought death to the world. And therefore Chava had to once again reignite the candle of the world. And that is why Chava, and then Sarah, and every Jewish woman after that lights the candles every Friday afternoon before Shabbos. And on the eve of every major holiday like Pesach and Shavuos and Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But that's only the first answer of the Zohar that was given by the Chavraya, the inner group of the scholars. But then the Zohar goes on to say, Raza de Mila, the secret reason behind the lighting of the candles. And this is not found in the Medrash. This is only found in the Zohar, which is the mystical part of the Torah, the soul of the Torah, that was hidden for many generations, until the Arizal came along, Rabbi Isaac Luria, in the 16th century, and he said, mitzvah legali zois hachachma. It's a mitzvah to reveal the secrets of the Torah. And the Zohar goes on to give 3 reasons why women were chosen with the opportunity and the great responsibility of lighting these candles. The Zohar goes on to say, number 1, because of Sukkah Shalom, that with the candles, the women bring the covenant of peace into the world. As we say in the davening Friday night, Ufrois aleinu Sukkah Shlemecha, spread upon us the Sukkah, the covenant or the cloud of your peace. So only women have that ability to bring down this Sukkah Shlemecha. Number 2, by lighting the candles, the women bring holy children into the world that become a light to the world, like the candles. For the candle represents Kiner mitzvah v'Torah. As King Solomon tells us that the flame represents the study of Torah, and the candle represents the fulfillment of good deeds. And number 3, by lighting the candles, she brings long life to her husband. And the Rebbe goes on to say that these 3 reasons are primarily the reasons of why they light the candles. In other words, the first reason of why they lit the candles because Chava extinguished the flame of the world. This answer really is no longer appropriate today. And that is because after so many years, so many girls and so many women lighting the candles, an average family of 4 or 5 children or 6 children lights 8 candles, and each of the girls light their own candle. So 10, 20, 30 candles in every family. And then every family in the world is lighting the candles for how many years? For thousands of years. So by now, for sure, we put on this candle. We have ignited the candle of the world. And we brought back this light. And we have restored the light that Chava had extinguished. So what then is the primary reason? The primary reason, says the Rebbe, is the reason that the Zohar says, because of these 3 qualities, that number 1, the woman brings peace into the world, number 2, holy children into the world, and number 3, to give her husband long life. And this, the Rebbe says, is more than these 3 general concepts. In other words, generally a person prays for 3 basic needs: Banei, Chaye, and Mezayne Revicha. We pray for children, we pray for health, and number 3, we pray for livelihood, to have money to survive. By lighting the candles, the woman is really giving the blessing and drawing down the energy for all of these 3 things. As we said earlier, number 1, she brings down Sukkah Shalom. She brings down the covenant of peace. We find in the Gemara, in Baba Metzia, page Nun Tes Amud Aleph, page 59, side A. The Gemara says over there, it brings a verse from Tehillim that says, Hasam Gevulech Shalom, Chelev Chitim Yazbiech. That Almighty God brings peace to the borders, and He brings creamy and fat wheat to satiate the individual. And therefore the commentaries explain that when is there peace in the borders, when is there peace in the home, when there's plenty of food to eat, when one is satiated with the creamy wheat, when there's money in the house, and when there's food in the house, there's peace in the house. So by lighting the candles, the woman is bringing the blessing of peace and also the blessing of livelihood into the house. And we've explained many times in the past that the blessing for livelihood, for parnasa, is in the merit of the woman. And that's why it says that the rabbis would tell their students, honor your wives in order to become rich, because the blessing for wealth is through the wife. And this starts with the lighting of the candles. Number 2 is children. And as the Zohar says, by lighting these candles, we will give birth to candles of the universe. We will give birth to children that will bring light to the universe. And number 3, the idea of health and long life, as the Zohar says, by lighting the candles, she will bring long life to her husband. And the Rebbe explains clearly, if she's going to bring long life to her husband, surely she's going to bring long life to herself. For if she's the source of that blessing to bring long life to others, then of course she is the blessing for herself. So we see here that the lighting of the candles, based on the Zohar, is that women light the candles not out of default, not because they have to fix something, but rather as a priori, because they are truly the source of all of this energy and light and holiness that is brought into the world. And therefore the Zohar concludes, a woman should light with a desire and gladness of heart, knowing the power she has when she lights these candles. It's interesting to note that even though a man is allowed to light Shabbos candles, and therefore if for some reason the mother is not home that week, or if the man is not married and the person is single, then he should light the candles every Friday before Shabbos. Yet this miracle is given to the woman, because the Medrash tells us that Sarah would light the candles and it burned from week to week, from Friday to Friday. And Rivka came into the house and she again started this miracle by igniting the candles, and again it burned from week to week. Now who lit it before Rivka came into the house? Avraham. After Sarah passed away, Avraham Avinu continued to light the candles like a good Jewish man every Friday afternoon. Yet we don't find the miracle that the candle should burn throughout the entire week. Only the woman was given this power, because she is the one that can bring Sukkah Shalom, the covenant of peace, into the world. And furthermore, every Friday when she lights the candles, she is eliciting a greater light and greater revelation. And this is similar to Rosh Hashanah. We're told in Chassidus that every year on Rosh Hashanah, at the time of the blowing of the shofar, God brings a new light, a new energy into the world. And therefore, all of us have a greater potential this year than last year. And the light that is brought in this year through the blowing of the shofar is a light that even Moshe Rabbeinu did not experience in his days. For every year, the light becomes stronger and holier. And the same is true with the lighting of the Shabbos candles. It's not that they are repeating an act that was done last week, but every Shabbos you're able to bring in now, with the lighting of the candles, a new light, a new aura, a new blessing for all of these things of Banei and Chaye and Mezayna, which is children, and for health and for Parnasa, livelihood. Furthermore, the Zohar says that the word candle, ner, has the gematria of 250. What does this imply? We know that there are 248 positive commandments. And each commandment we are supposed to do with ava and yira, with love and awe of God. As the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, if a person does a mitzvah, he does one of the commandments, but he lacks this emotion, he lacks this awe, he lacks this love for God, it's like a chicken without wings. And therefore the bird, the mitzvah, cannot rise above, but rather remains down here in this world. And therefore, says the Rebbe, when the woman lights the candle, Friday afternoon, the ner, in essence what she is doing is, she is bringing this light of Torah and mitzvahs into the home. She is inspiring her husband and her children to fulfill all 248 positive commandments, and to do that with love and fear. Because we see that women by nature are more emotional than men, and this is a positive concept, because Torah says when you do a mitzvah you should do it with emotion. And therefore when the children see how the mother lights the candles, and the emotion and the love and the excitement and the joy that she lights the candles with, this inspires the children when they do their mitzvah. They should also do the mitzvah with the same joy and excitement and happiness as the mother. And therefore the mitzvah of Shabbos candles represents the role of the Jewish woman, that she is truly first and the forefront of everything Jewish and important. And this starts from the lighting of the candles. It says in the Zohar that Shabbos, my name is Baruch and Kula Yomin. Shabbos blesses the entire week. And how does the woman bring in the Shabbos? She brings in the Shabbos by lighting of the candles. Now she lights the candles 18 minutes before sunset. And after she lights the candles, then the husband goes to shul and he davens maitiv, and he says now the terminology that he prays to God to bring the covenant of peace into the world. And then he goes home and then he makes the kiddush. So really, the woman sanctified the Shabbos with her lighting of the candles 18 minutes before sunset. And now, after Maitiv, the husband comes home and he makes Kiddush an hour later. So already an hour before, she establishes the holiness and the greatness of Shabbos. And she already inspired the children how to go into the Shabbos with this love and awe of God, and how to do all 248 positive commandments with this sincerity and with this emotion. The candles are only the beginning, but everywhere and throughout Jewish history, we find that the women were first. When it came to the giving of the Torah, as we explained in the previous class, it says over there that God tells Moses, so shall you speak to the daughters of Israel, then speak to the men. Before God gave his most cherished treasure to the entire world, he told Moses, first talk to the women, then talk to the men. If the women agree, and the women want it, and they truly desire it, then they will implement it and make sure the men will fulfill the Torah as well. And then we find furthermore, pertaining to the building of the Mishkan, the sanctuary, God's home. It says there as well that Vayavayu ha'anoshim al ha'noshim, the first the women came and they gave the tzedakah, and they gave the donations for the Mishkan. And only after the women went, then the men came and they gave tzedakah as well. So here too we see how the women were the forefront, not only for spiritual things, but even when it came to giving of their money and their charity. In reverse, pertaining to the building of the golden calf, we find a similar concept, that Aaron tells the men, go home and get your wife's jewelry to build the golden calf. For Aaron was trying to procrastinate, he was trying to delay the building of the golden calf. Hopefully Moshe would come down and save the day. And in the interim, they went home, the men went home and told their wives, fine, give us your jewelry. The wife said, no, we're not participating in this sin. We're not building a golden calf. We are participating in holy things, not in unholy things. So not only are they the impetus and the inspiration for positive things, they also know how to say no when it comes to negative things. So this all begins with the Neder Shabbos Kodesh. This begins with the lighting of the Shabbos candles. In addition to the lighting of the Shabbos candles, the Rebbe requested that the women should also give tzedakah before they light the candles. And the question is, why should they give tzedakah before the lighting of the candles? And I just want to mention, as a side note, that at another occasion, the Rebbe spoke about the importance of women putting a tzedakah box into the kitchen, and that the actual charity box should be on the wall in the kitchen, nailed into the wall that becomes part of the kitchen. And he said by doing this, this will actually give a better flavor to the food, besides all the other blessings that this will bring to the home. And of course, if the man is the chef, he should do that as well. And I believe, on a personal note, that by doing this, we are creating a big tzedakah box. The entire house becomes a pushka. And by the entire house becoming a pushka, we become a vessel for God's blessing. God's blessing is infinite. It depends on us creating the vessels. If you have a small vessel, you can only get a little blessing. If you have a big, big vessel, you're able to acquire much more blessing. And so therefore, by putting the tzedakah box on the wall in the kitchen, which is the mainstay of the home, the source of the life and food and sustenance of the home, and the kitchen now continues throughout the entire home, this brings the tzedakah box onto all four walls of the home, making the entire house into a charity box. So the question is, why do we give tzedakah before the lighting of the candles? And the Rebbe once wrote the following, and I'm going to paraphrase, I'm going to expound and give some commentary on this as well. And that is that we find in the Torah, even though there are 613 mitzvos, 613 commandments, there are a few commandments that the Torah adds that this commandment should be a remembrance. For example, by Shabbos, we are told in the Ten Commandments, Zachor es yoyim haShabbos l'kadshei, remember the Shabbos. Of course, we have to keep the Shabbos, but there's a specific verse, a specific word, a reminder, remember the Shabbos. When it comes to going out of Egypt, we also find this terminology, remember the going out of Egypt. And finally, the most important Jewish event, which is the event of God giving us the Torah on Sinai. That is the day that God made us His nation. That is the day God commanded us with all the 613 commandments of the Torah. It says, remember what happened to you at Chorev at Mount Sinai. Now, why does God have to remind us? Why do we need to make this a remembrance? All the mitzvos of the Torah are important. And the answer is that because a person throughout the day is preoccupied in earning a living, and eating, and drinking, and sleeping, the majority of the day is for material things. And therefore, when it comes to spiritual things, we could forget about it. And therefore, there's a specific emphasis when it comes to these three mitzvahs of Shabbos, and Passover, and Shavuos, that God says, I know you're busy, I know you're doing important things, but remember, when Friday evening comes, you got to stop all your work, and you got to keep Shabbos. And I know all year round, you're eating cookies, and cake, and ice cream, and all these wonderful things that might have chametz in it. But you know what? Pesach comes, remember it's Pesach, you got to stop eating. And all year round, you're involved in all these other responsibilities. But you know what? Today is Shavuos. Today you became a nation. You got to stop working, and you got to focus on the theme of the day. It's interesting that all of these three remembrances that the Torah says, we add the mitzvah of lighting the candles. We light the candle before the Shabbos. We light the candle before the holiday of Shavuos. We light the candle before the holiday of Passover. Because this adds to the remembrance. It reminds us that this is an important day. And so therefore, to make it more important, to create a remembrance, we do certain things that keep us focused. And one of those things is the lighting of the candles. And just like the candles serve as a remembrance for these holidays, we also do an act that reminds us to remember to light the candles. And that is the giving of tzedakah. That before we light the candles, because the lighting of the candles is so important in Judaism, as we explained earlier, all of the benefits that the Zohar talks about. So not to forget, God forbid, the lighting of the candles, we have a remembrance to remember to light the candles. And why does that? Give tzedakah first. Now why tzedakah? Because tzedakah on one hand is a very easy thing to do. You put your hand in your pocket or your wallet and you put a few coins in the pushka. On the other hand, tzedakah is such a powerful mitzvah. Because, as the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, most mitzvos are connected to a specific limb in your body. Running to the shul is with your feet. Eating kosher food is with your mouth. Putting on tefillin is with your arm. Davening is also with your mouth. Studying Torah is with your mind. But tzedakah is a mitzvah that incorporates the entire body. All 248 limbs and all 365 arteries. Why? because you worked hard for that money. You sweat and you cried and you bled. And now that hard-earned money, instead of using it for yourself, to buy a new shirt, or buy a new car, or buy a new pair of shoes, or have a manicure, or do something, you use this and you give it to a poor person to help somebody else. So you're giving your entire essence away to help someone who's less fortunate than you. So number one, we teach the child who's about to light the Shabbos candles, look what mommy's doing, put a few coins in the pushka, to remind you that when you have your own money, you are going to give money to the poor. And in the meantime, the mother gives the child a few coins to put in the pushka before she lights the candles. And in general, we let the child, the 3-year-old girl or the 2.5-year-old girl, once she begins to talk, to light her own candles. Because these little girls who are pure of sin, when they light a candle, they bring immense energy and light into the world. And we see that the power of lighting a candle is so real. Because if you go into a dark room and you turn off all the lights, and a little 2.5-year-old girl kindles a candle, the whole room becomes light. So every time these little meidalach, these little young girls are lighting the candles, they're bringing physical and spiritual light to the whole world. And before that, they are reminded of the importance of this mitzvah by giving tzedakah. Just like tzedakah, everybody knows, is a very important mitzvah, so too the lighting of the candles is also as important. And that's why they give tzedakah before the lighting of the candles. The tzedakah is a remembrance to remind them to light the candles. That's one approach. Another approach is that tzedakah and candle lighting intrinsically are the same. Because, as we said earlier, the first answer of the Zohar, that the candle lighting is to fix the mistake of Chava. Chava extinguished the light and the life of the world. And now, by lighting candles, we are once again kindling and illuminating the world with light and with life. And the same is true with charity. The Gemara says that great is charity. Why is it so great? Because charity literally saves lives. So therefore, both of these mitzvahs, charity and the lighting of candles, is about saving lives and bringing more life and light into the world. The Yalkut Shimoni tells us that if you maintain the Shabbos candles, I will show you the candles of Zion. In other words, that by lighting the Shabbos candles, one ushers in the ultimate geula, the redemption through Mashiach. And therefore, when a woman lights the candles, it is known that she has a very private and personal time with God. This is her moment, her intimate moment with God. And she can ask for anything she wants and needs. And therefore, when she lights the candles, in addition to asking God, number one, for banei, for children and healthy children, and chaye, health, for herself and her husband and her family, and all those who need a speedy recovery. And mezayne, she asks also for sustenance, that her husband should have a good living. At that time, a woman should also ask for the light of the Mashiach, that the world truly have this sukkah, this covenant of peace that will truly take place when Mashiach comes. And the women, we know, the Talmud says, that it was truly in the merit of the righteous women that our forefathers were redeemed from the land of Egypt the first time. And that the souls of this generation is a reincarnation of those souls. And therefore, the women of this generation will bring themselves and their families into the promised land. And by praying at the time of candle lighting, this will no doubt usher in the Geula Ha'amitis V'Ashlema. A story is told, and I heard this from Yingi Bistritsky, that the Rebbe's wife, Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka, was once in the library, either picking up or returning some books. As you know, that the Rebbe's wife would often go to the library either to get books for herself or for her husband. The Rebbe, that was an avid reader. And as she's standing in line, the cashier says, your name is Schneerson. Are you related to the famous Rabbi Schneerson? And humbly she responded, yes, that's my husband. And the woman behind the counter became teary-eyed. And the Rebbetzin asked her, what happened? Why are you upset? She said, you know, I'm not religious, but I had a problem. I'm married for many years, and I have no children. And somebody told me, if I go to the rabbi for dollars on Sunday, the rabbi will give me a blessing for children. So I went online, and I went by the Rebbe for $1. I asked him for a blessing for a child, and he said to me, I should light candles for Shabbos. So the Rebbetzin said, no, do you light candles? She says, yeah, every week. The Rebbetzin said, tell me, when do you light the candles? I light the candles every week the same time, 6:30 at night. When my husband comes home from work, I light the candles and we eat the Shabbos meal together. She said, you see, you're supposed to light the candles before sunset. It's very important. Just like there's a mitzvah to light the Shabbos candles, there's also a mitzvah to light the Shabbos candles in the right time. So it's important that you light the candles before the sun sets. And I am sure if you do this, that my husband's blessings will come into effect. And you will truly be blessed with a child. And of course, the story ends on a good note, that this lady began to light every week candles in the proper time. And 9 months later, she gave birth to a child. And here we see that the candle lighting is not only that when you have children, that the children will be bright lights for the world, but that the lighting of the candles itself is the blessing for children, and is the blessing to find your soulmate, and is the blessing for all good things. So we hope and pray that by lighting the Shabbos candles, we will truly see the lights of Zion with the coming of Mashiach from Heireh B'Meinu. Amen.